Oh, right. Yeah. This, because we did the Gillespie brothers one. I've been as well. I've been listening to Sean Atwood's podcast. The Glasgow um guests are always the best. It's yeah, but Arthur Thompson is the name that comes up as the Glasgow Godfather. But this is a guy before Arthur Thompson. I think is like more the 80s. Although he's got the kind of class of an old school. Like what you see of him, he is kind of like a Godfather. But then I've been listening to New School Glasgow lot, and they all say Paul Ferris. Like he was like the names you knew was Blink, Paul Ferris, and that lot. He's like, but Paul Ferris stood out. But yeah, so this is Walter North. What they're going to say his name. But the original, yeah, he's basically the OG original Godfather of Glasgow. So yeah, let's go. Oh yeah, did I say this is from Kev? Yeah, Kev's been sending me a couple of banging Glasgow crime things, but yeah.
Of bagpipes, kilts, and breathtaking scenery, but the reality is grim. Violence meted out on the streets of Glasgow has resulted in the city having the highest murder rate in Western Europe.
I don't know if you'd necessarily think that if you're from the UK. Glasgow Kiss, which is a headbutt. Like, people know Glasgow's. But I suppose if you're from outside, if you're American, you might think of Glasgow being la-di-da and kind of, yeah.
But it wasn't always so. Back in the 1940s, 50s and 60s, villains like Glasgow's first godfather, Walter Norville, attempted to go about their unsavoury business whilst adhering to a now redundant code.
So how did you sort of descend into crime?
I was in at an early age when I was young, as I say. My ma was never about, and I got into a wee crowd of pals, and we started off, as I say, just breaking windows and that, and stealing out the windows and that, you know. But when the war came, it was a canter because it was a blackout then. But this time the police knew who we were. You know, they used to chase us away for the corners and that. But they actually knew who was behind it all, you know. It was our wee mob that run about together. And while the blackout was on, you could break a window, you know, and people were never bothered when they heard the noise like that. They were stealing tea and sugar. It was all rationed. And we used to sell it to the bookmakers because they used to buy anything off you. Everything was rationed. So we got tea and sugar and things like that. That was the main things. If we were lucky, if we could get eggs, you only get one egg a month on the rations. So if we get a wee case of eggs and that, well, the bookie gave you a fortune for it.
After several short terms of imprisonment, Walter's career accelerated from committing petty crime to being involved in more serious matters.
This time I'd done a couple of sentences, you know, wee ones. And I met people for Govan and that, boys that knew people and that, you know. And we decided that we'll start trying something like this. So we found out, we used to, let's say, go and watch places. And then we'd hit them. We started having maybe, there was a watchman run this place, used to sit in this place, and the wages used to get delivered to him. So we decided to watch when the wages get delivered, and we sat in a car up the road and we watched it. And we saw the wages get in. There was only the man in the place with a big tray of wages. So we hit that first, and we got them.
Yeah, I've just listened to Freddie Foreman. I'm actually listening to it again. Freddie Foreman's book, The Godfather of London. Really, and again, anybody who's anybody in crime pretty much says Freddie Foreman was the Godfather of London, without a doubt. But he was the same, like that old school criminal of robbing money. Like it wasn't drugs and that back then. It was going on the pavement. That's what they called it. Freddie Foreman. So it means you go robbing banks and yeah.
So easy. I said, oh, this is better than that. So we just started then planning me robberies and hitting banks and different things. It went from one to another, you know, and the wee gang got together. But they were all from different districts. I used to, you know, one of the gang would maybe say, so-and-so's again, boy, and he's looking for a bit of pie, and so they'd bring him up. But this time I got a flat in the Willowbank Crescent, a 3-room and kitchen, and we used to meet there. And we'd be sitting there and we used to discuss what we were going to do next. So one of the boys would maybe, I'll let him take my place, Walter, you know, and I'd let him get a bit of pie out of it. And, you know, everybody was getting a wee wage.
The more successful Walter became, the more resentment he attracted from his fellow villains.
I was in the house one day, me and the wife, and had a good drink, mate. It was a Friday night. And the door went, and it was Wally White, and see Tony Queen, the bookmaker. His wife was staying with Tony White, with Big Wally White. Big Wally White was a British welterweight champion. You maybe heard of him, and he came through our district, so he came up to see me. And Queen's wife was with him, and this guy was with him. Big guy built like yourself. Gibson, and he landed near road, and 2 weeks before I was watching him, he was fighting 3 guys outside the pub at Marlin, and he was batting 3 of them. And I made a saying to my wife, oh God, look at him, I said, he's a big tearaway. And I was well known on the road. I'm saying to myself, I hope I don't have to tackle him. But sure as Christ, that night, through the drink, I fell asleep. And my wife woke me up. She says, Walter, going to put him out. And I looked, and Big White had left with his wife, with Queen's wife. And this big is standing at the door, and I says, I looked and I had a good drink, mate. That he come round, and I says, come on, you need to get away. And he says, put me out. I says, come on, don't act it. I says, come on, out you go. He says, well, I heard you could fight. He says, I always wanted to try you out. And I looked at him and I still wasn't sober. I says, okay, let's do it. I said, but down the back. So we went down the stair, and the way down the stair I made a bloomer. I walked in front of him. And when we got down to the 3rd flat, he kind of jumped me for the back, and I went down and I hit this woman's doorstep with my forehead, but I turned to her quick and he was trying to jump on me. And we started to fight. I had a blade in my back pocket. I just slipped out before I went down the stair. And we rolled about for a while, you know, and then I got and tapped him. And I started, and he had his horns over his eyes. But this time my wife had started screaming, and a pally man had run out, stayed up there, just dived out. He was pulling me off him, but I was trying to take his eyes out, you know, stabbing him in the face.
It wasn't long before...
That's what I mean. You see all like the knife crime now. Glasgow was on it back then, but I know like you always had razor gangs and that. But I listened to one Glasgow like a newer school one. Was he in new school? I think so. But he's basically saying, he said I had a row with went to have a row with some boy. He said his dad turned up with him. He said, and the dad was huge, and he's like, I think he was only like 14. Him and his boy was 14. He said, and they grabbed him. He's like, and I just started stabbing the dad. He's like, and the dad started stabbing me. And then the boys stabbed it, like both the dad and he's like, they thought it was a stab fest. But yeah, Glasgow is the knife thing that's so big now. Yeah, Glasgow was on it hard back in the day, because you even see it with Paul Ferris, Blink. Like they're all like, do you know what I mean? Blink's got a great big scar down his face, but that's what they was doing, stabbing each other and that.
met up with Gibson again. Both men knew they had unfinished business.
I was playing dominoes in the pub, and Big Wally West for Postal came in. He was a big hard man for Postal. He says, Walter, watch yourself. He says, Gibson's up there with 3-handed. He says, they're looking for you. He says, with knives that length. I went, oh. So I was playing dominoes with 2 pals of mine. Donkey White and John Harris. They're dead, the 2 of them. But I was playing dominoes. So I finished the game and I got up and I walked out, and Donkey came out the back of me and says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to see him. He said, wait, we'll go. I said, no, you keep at it. I said, so we walked up anyway, and then John came up. I know John Harris. And I looked at the door, and There was the big and stoning with his pals. I didn't give him time, I just walked in quick. I says, "You looking for me?" Turned and stuck it right in his neck. Before he had a chance, I stuck it 3 times in his chest. And this time he's trying to get away and he's staggering away into a corner. So I just went after him, he turned his back and got down. I did his 2 kidneys, stuck it in the back of his head. This time I heard the woman screaming. I blew up. It was all in the back of the bar. And I just got up and I walked away and I went out to his pals. I said, "What about you?" They all walked away and all. So we just went and jumped a taxi. We went to my mother's. And I gave John, I said, "Get rid of that knife." Next thing I heard that the murder squad was out looking for me. Supposed to have died in the ambulance. But he died there, but they brought him down again.
That reminds me as well of Blink. When Blink goes into a bank but doesn't get the money. They fired a shot in the bank, but he's like, "I just went and had breakfast," like, because I thought, well, we didn't take any money. But you see the difference with him to like the kids that stab each other today as well, because they just stab. You'll see it with like 70 times, but you saw it. I stuck it in his kidneys. He knows, where to get, and that's like real people in London. Like when you see it and it's 70, you know that the person who's stabbed them is just a kid and it's terrified because it like literally one in the heart. When you see one of them stories come up, one stab and they're dead, it's like that was do you know what I mean? Someone who knew exactly what they was doing and went to kill him, right? But you see it with him. Yeah. Stuck it straight in his kidneys, knows where the kidneys are and crazy. And then like I just went to my mum's, like Glasgow.
Walter's criminal career came to an abrupt halt when he and his gang were arrested following a tip-off from a police informant. People loyal to Walter tried to derail the prosecution case against him by blowing up the courthouse where his trial was being held.
What was the purpose of blowing
Pablo
Well,
Escobar.
the court up?
The people I met that knew something about it, I knew nothing about it. But the people that I know that did know about it, I think it was the people that actually done it. They explained to me that all the evidence was kept the day before underneath in the High Court. And they used to say it's down in places underneath the High Court. But there was 2 High Courts, and there was one on each side, the south and the north. So as far as I heard it, the guys that was interested in doing it was going to hit the 2 of them. And that's what they done. They hit the 2 courts, but the fire brigade got there. Actually, I heard that they were a dog barton. It drew the attention of people to the fires burning inside the court. And that's what saved the evidence for getting all done in. Because the flare would have went through. It seems it was they firebombed it with petrol and all that, and these petrol bombed and the whole place was on fire. They tried us in a burnt court. The finish up.
Before the evidence had been destroyed, there'd been no case against you.
It was a walkout. Everybody was walking out. Even we friends that I know that was in for the same thing, we Manson and him, their stuff would all went and all.
Another major player in Glasgow after the war was Arthur Thompson. By the 1950s, Thompson and his brothers had embarked upon a life of crime working as bouncers, debt collectors and extortionists. If Walter Norval was the unofficial godfather of Glasgow, Arthur was undoubtedly the undisputed king of pain. He's said to have crucified those that refused to repay their debts by nailing their hands and feet to floors and doors.
Earlier in life, Arthur was getting a wee bit of pay off bookmakers and that, and a certain family was nipping in and trying to be abusive to the bookie. And the bookie told Arthur. So Arthur saw them in a van that's taken along the road, and he flew after them in the car and he ran them off the road. And in the course of it, one of the chaps got killed. They ran into a post and one of the chaps got killed. So the way it worked out, there was a bit of retaliation. Arthur used to have a habit and go out in the car, but he didn't drive the car. There was another wee guy who used to drive him. And this day, the wee guy didn't turn up. I don't want to mention names, the wee guy's alive. and Arthur had to drive the car, and his mother-in-law decided she wanted a run. Don't need to tell you, switched on the engine, there were a bomb under the passenger seat. The woman was killed. Arthur broke his 2 legs and I got bad injuries in his legs. The woman, innocent woman, and she was killed, but it was meant for Arthur.
Yeah, because that's something I can't remember the other thing Blink says compares himself, but yeah, with Blink he says 100% Arthur Thompson was the Godfather when in his day. But yeah, that's one of the things Blink he said I had quite a few things in common with the Godfather. One of the things he said, he had a bumper under his car and I had a bumper under my car. But yeah, hold on 2 secs. This is well good, but hold on 2 secs. Yeah, let's carry on. Let's go.
Unlike Walter, Arthur was happy to deal in drugs, and he'd forged links with gangs in Liverpool, London and Manchester. The vast amounts of money he made inevitably attracted interest from rival gangs, and warfare.
He did work with the Krays. Well, I don't know whether he said that, but Blink said he always heard that Arthur had dealings with the Krays, and then he met Charlie Cray, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "Yeah, we knew Arthur Thompson. We used to do work for him. He'd do work for us." Like, yeah.
Soon broke out on the streets. Arthur employed gangsters from London to murder his enemies in Glasgow, and Arthur's men would then travel to the capital to return the favour.
Well, I liked him very much. And the Italian Albert, he introduced me to him. And I got very friendly with him. And I'd go up to Glasgow to see him, and he'd come down to London to see me and visit me in prison and all and everything. I liked him very much. Sometimes we would ask them to do us a favour up there, and sometimes they would ask us to do a favour for them down here, giving someone, you know, a right belting and that.
When I was a boy years ago, you into a pub and it was
yeah,
whether it's trouble or a skirmish or whatever, all you heard was that's Arthur's pub. That stopped all the trouble.
Is that the one who got wrongly accused when the prisoner was wrongly accused? Still.
If somebody said Arthur owns that and he'd caused trouble way back then, I mean, it could be quite nasty.
Joe Steele's father was also a well-known face in Glasgow, who had ties to gangs in London.
He was friends with the Crays. He used to get cards every year at Christmas. And he went down to visit, I think it was 1969, to visit the Cray twins. We were on remand, and he was arrested by the police, and they said he had a gun in his pocket. So he got 3 years for that. But the gun was put in his pocket. My dad didn't go to visit with a gun, so he got 3 years for that.
Why would the planter gun on him?
Because, as I say, he was a safe blower. He had friends, he had a reputation, and he was loyal. He would help his friends in trouble. So, just my dad's friends and people saying, I think they thought he was doing it to intimidate people, which was accused in Glasgow.
That was at the time the Crays were on trial for murder?
Yes.
And he'd gone to intimidate the witnesses?
Well, that's what the police alleged. He was going to intimidate witnesses, but he was only there for a visit.
And was that something what went on? Glasgow villains going to London, London villains coming to Glasgow? What?
Well,
Can you describe that?
My dad had a friend, he was a tourist in Glasgow, still is, and he was accused of a couple of murders and was cleared. And my dad was accused of intimidating witnesses in their cases that he was cleared in. And so, my dad was that well known everywhere. He went to post now, and he was high profile, even way back then. But as I say, he was loyal to his friends.
Paul Ferris is one of Britain's most notorious faces. Known as the wee man because of his size, he's an unlikely hard man.
Yeah, that's what I saw a Glasgow person say. He's like, there's still bars, there's still pubs in Glasgow where Paul Ferris's name is whispered. Do you know what I mean? That people are still scared. He still has that. I don't think he's been in crime though for ages. He writes books and that, but still he's got that reputation still.
Ferris was employed by Arthur Thompson to carry out attacks on rivals with military precision and merciless ferocity. The mere mention of his name struck terror into the hearts of Arthur's enemies.
The reputation came about probably media-led. They like to put a tag on people that sells newspapers and different things like that. But from an early point of view, I'm not saying the newspapers are responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for my actions. And I knew that at a very early age that I was going to do something back to these bullies. And there was a situation that I've heard recently for a well-renowned boxer, Alex Arthur. He was doing an interview and he used a phrase called punch resistant. He became punch resistant after so many years in the ring. And I thought, I'm going to try and use that as an analogy to put forward that you become fear resistant. You know, the whole point of it is the fear that you've experienced and the violence you've experienced as an early kid, a young kid. You're resistant to that fear and that level of violence, even meeting the violence out.
Well, I met Paul through my younger brother, and he knew that I was into jewellery robberies and things like that, and he asked to come on board. And I ended up, I've took him today a few, you know what I mean?
How did they work? What did you do?
Well, we used to go in, one would go in and would be dressed up and all that. We'd bring me a pair of glasses and suit and all that, and I would get in and ask to see a tray of rings, something like that. And I'd just run out the door with it, and Paul would be around the corner in the car, then he'd go and do the next one. And so that's how we started off, you know what I mean?
And what about the violence? Was it?
Well, we started getting into the city centre and things like that, and getting drunk, and we ended up in a lot of trouble with people, and we ended up carving out a reputation for serious violence. We were slashing people with Stanley blades in it, and we were actually called the Stanley Gang. But there was a lot of people trying to attack us, so we were just getting in there first. And we came to the notice of Arthur Thompson, and one night he'd asked to bring me, for me and Paul, to go to the prom Mill Inn. And Paul went and I never turned up, and that was the night he was recruited with the Thompson for it.
I was introduced to Tam Began, who was already working with the Thompsons, collected cash all over the city. And I was introduced as what you would call another bagman, another collector. We never asked any questions about how much was in it, who paid the debt, what was the debt for. It was just things you don't ask. You know, what it was you go and see Mr. A and collect X amount, and then you take it back. There was certain times where people had never had the money on the given time. And other people have got the misconception is because they've not got the money, we use the strong arm tactics and go and beat them up and all the rest of it, or threaten them. And that never happened when we were doing it. But they had to give us something, either a time or date, to get back to tell Thompson that Mr. A never had the money at that time, but we'll go back and revisit him on such and such a date because that's the date he gave us. And that would probably be the last date, and people genuinely had the money on the dates that they said that they were getting. And during the process of this, they had lost something in the region of £50,000 through a transaction that they were doing. And they were given a holdall that had been superglued. And once the holdall had been cut open at the side, I don't know the significance in it. I still don't know the significance in it. There was 2 building bricks and a bottle of iron brew, which is a kind of well-known Glasgow and Scottish drink that was gaffer taped together to give the impression of weight. You know, somebody's handing a hold over, they've got a bit of weight, nothing moves. I still can't understand how somebody would part with £50,000 for without checking what was in a particular bag. They saw that as a big insult, and this happened roughly around about the time I just joined. So on the process of trying to get this debt back, there was a few casualties that were given a message, and the message was that you've took a right fucking liberty, be given this bag over and more or less robbed them. On one occasion, I'd been given false information by a guy called Raymond Bonner, who was alleged to be involved in it, and they heard that I was coming to see him with regards to the £50,000. And he was armed. I was alleged to have been furnished with this information, and as it turns out in the later years, that the guy had nothing to do with it. You know, it was one of the Thompsons that were telling me, matter of fact, it was one of the female members of the Thompson family who told me about it, and which resulted in Raymond Bonner being repeatedly stabbed, and his dog in the back seat of a vehicle, which caused quite a lot of heat in Glasgow at that time, and I was given the opportunity to kind of move away and go to the Isle of Bute, Rossi, where Thompson had a family holiday home.
That's actually perfect. I wanted to stop it at about 22. I thought we'd gone way over that. But yeah, no, this is great because this is literally all the people, although I have moved on, Mark Dempster, he's hilarious. Kevin Dooley's one's hilarious. That's what I mean. You watch the kind of criminal podcast, the Glasgow guests, always the best ones. You're always guaranteed a good episode with any Glasgow. Yeah, but they are ruthless. But yeah, no, this is fire. Because yeah, this is really kind of telling you a bit more about Arthur, because like I say, obviously Arthur Thompson's dead. His son's dead. There's no one really to tell their kind of thing, but I suppose you'll get in his story. But yeah, no, this is fire. I'll carry it on tomorrow, maybe, I don't know. At some point we'll carry it on. 22, we'll say 22:40. Now it's 40. But yeah, that's part one. That's the reaction.